Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Talk. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, the market is still trotting along at a really lovely rate. We had 1,096 properties go to auction on the weekend and we had a clearance rate of 68.25%. It's hardly moved. There's been about a 0.02% wavering up and down in the past couple of months, so it's extremely stable. Stable for what is still a boom market. There's got to be some irony in that, hasn't there? But what I'm most interested in talking about today is the tipping point. And as you all know, I love to talk about markets and where the tipping point is, because nobody ever rings a bell at the top of the market, no one ever rings a bell at the bottom of the market. But on the 14th of September, the Australian Fin Review reported Rob Maller from BIS Economics. Now, for those of you who don't know who BIS are, they're a residential and industrial real estate market forecasting company, and they're one of the few people that I do follow. But they actually came out a couple of years ago and joined the bandwagon with the, henny penny, we've got oversupply, and a lot of people have, it's a very hot topic, and it does make me somewhat frustrated, and I've been a big advocate. I don't believe that we are going to be in a period of oversupply for long, because it wasn't that long ago in 2012 when the Age was doing funny cartoons about Melbourne, the place to be, if only you could find a place to be, because we were in undersupply. But certainly Melbourne in the past couple of years, particularly in 2015, we held something like 28% of the approvals to build apartments, townhouses and semi-detached properties, which is villa units and little single-fronted properties. So if you look at 28% of the national slice of the pie, it's a lot. But what's actually happened now, with the census results finally trickling through, it turns out that 109,000 more people came to Melbourne than were realised or forecast. And as I often joke, no one sits with a counter at the border when people cross over or fly in or however they come to Melbourne. So what's actually happened, if you do the econometrics of that, 109,000 more people means 35,000 more dwellings are required. Now, what's actually happened is we actually had 15,000 new dwellings approved and built. We actually had 35,000 more people coming in. So what's actually happening now is we're actually looking at tipping. Instead of what was forecast of an oversupply, ironically of about 20,000 was what the forecast was, they're now saying by 2018 we're going to have an undersupply of 20,000. Now, what frustrates me is that I've been saying for a long time, it's purely a mathematics game, because if you've got stamp duty savings being abolished, then there's going to be a quietening of the market. I remember fringe benefits tax when they came in, people stopped having lunches for at least 12 months because they didn't know what to do. They could no longer tax deduct it, and of course then people changed the way they did things and continued entertaining. But I find any sort of change, there is that little lag period. But it's, as I said, it's a numbers game. If you actually look at the fact that we've gone from 28% overall approval around Australia, we're actually going to drop down to a third of that. So when you go from 28%, we're going to be roughly around about 9% next year. So what's actually going to happen if we've still got 1,800 plus people every week coming to Melbourne, and we've got less construction? They're actually tipping that the construction boom will finish in the next 2 years, and that makes sense because a lot of the off-the-plan purchases that we help facilitate here at Solid, they generally take 18 months to build, and generally they won't start building until 80% is sold, and that can take anywhere between 3 to 9 months. So if you do the numbers, if the market's going to drop with construction completion in 2 years, and the market has dropped with off the plan, which will be probably a 12-month hiatus, then it makes sense. If the people are still coming and we're not building at the rate we need to, of course we're going to tip into undersupply. But I've also been coming out publicly for the last 6 months and saying that what I am seeing is an increase in rents. Every time we've got a lease renewal coming up here at Solid, we're getting another $10 a week on average. It's very rare at the moment that rents are staying stable. And, you know, I know some people think, look, the tenants are being great, you know, they pay their rent on time, but the truth is rents are set at market rate. So I think with the undersupply, we're going to, obviously it's going to drive rents even further. So with BIS coming out now and saying it could be as much as 20,000 undersupply in 2 years, everything that we've been looking forward to as investors is going to start to materialise. We've bought, we've held them, we want to hold them for at least a 10-year period. You know, my adage, buy well to never sell. And I really think that anyone that's experienced a flattening in their pricing in the last certainly 2 years, sit tight. It is all about to turn. I am so confident of that. And I'll just end on this note. I met really good clients of mine on the weekend to show them an investment property, and lo and behold, it was an apartment block that's finished, absolutely beautiful, unencumbered views in South Melbourne. This developer got a permit that he would never get again today, and it's got 360-degree views, unencumbered, beautiful. Anyway, I'm waiting with my client, and a busload and 60 investors from Melbourne and Sydney got out and inspected the last 15 apartments left. And I sat there and I thought to myself, if you can get a busload of 60 investors to one site on a Saturday afternoon, there is no slowing in the investor market. I'll close on that note. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you again next week.